Thank you, Chairman Grassley. Thank you for holding this hearing. Thank you to our witnesses for being here today, and I'm sure you have many in the audience that are here for support. As the wife of a career law enforcement officer, a former DEA agent, thank you for signing up for these dangerous jobs, putting your safety behind the safety of others, and continuing to persevere in the pursuit of law and order. The promise made to a nation under a rule of law a long time ago that we continue to promise to this day, even when so many back away from it, even those that are often put in charge of this nation. I've been here a hot second. I'm the newest member, not only of the United States Senate, but of this committee. And I have learned quickly why the American people often get frustrated with Congress. We are here today specifically for a hearing entitled "The Thin Blue Line Protecting America from Cartels." And I had to listen to the ranking member talk all about the harm that is being caused in Mexico. And I had to hear about another member accuse you of using too many resources to enforce the law and the harm that that might be having in other nations and not America. And I sat as Attorney General in Florida for many years and listened to President Biden as he called Mexico a great partner, when in fact the president of Mexico suggested that the fentanyl crisis, which kills over 100,000 people a year, is an American problem. And so it is important, I think, to point out that you have leaders in Congress that are purporting to want to help you solve the crisis of the cartels and the deaths in America and the damage to our communities and our families, but yet we're focusing all on what's happening in America or in Mexico, when in fact maybe we should concentrate on the harm to Americans and this country first, which is what the president is trying to do. In fact, you heard the ranking member out of the gate say, "Oh, I think these cartels should be labeled foreign terrorist organizations." Well, he was the chairman of this committee for the last 4 years. And you know who declared these cartels finally foreign terrorist organizations? President Trump and the agencies working for President Trump. In fact, as AG, I called for that for years under Biden, pleading that it would bring more resources to bear, more law enforcement agencies in partnership with the fight. And it fell on deaf ears. In fact, do you know how many hearings we had in this committee over the last 4 years under President Biden? Under Democratic leadership on fentanyl? Zero. Zero. So I want to thank you. As many politicians and leaders in states around this nation undermined law enforcement, tried to defund them, encourage attacks on law enforcement right now as they're trying to do their jobs, that you and so many men and women in law enforcement, not just federal, but state and local, stand bravely and strongly on that thin blue line because they know what it means to be a free people under a rule of law, and that is that you need men and women willing to take the criticism and the attacks and do their jobs and enforce the rule of law. And the fact that you three and so many like you proudly took the oath and wore a badge for so many years, putting your safety behind others, like myself and my family, I want to proudly and make it a priority to say thank you. In fact, everyone up here should publicly say thank you, and to every law enforcement officer out there right now, especially through the last 4 years, as President Biden broke down the border and unleashed drugs, cartel members, those who had barely been vetted into our communities. And you know who held that line? Who showed up every single day and put on a bulletproof vest to protect us in the face of that danger? Law enforcement. They stood on that thin line between chaos and order, between good and evil, for us, and in a broader sense, for this country and what it means to live as a free people under a rule of law. So publicly and proudly, I say thank you. And I want to ask, what do you need to protect America and this nation and our people first and foremost? Because the last person that had that job abdicated that responsibility to an auto pen. So we need to say not how can we first help other countries? How can we first help other nations? How can we first help America? Because we know from the time President Trump was in office until Biden, those on the foreign terrorist watch list that were let in went up 2,500%. What can we do to protect America first and foremost and give you to do your jobs? Let me ask you, Mr. Perez.
Can you give short answers, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for the comments. I would say the number one challenge for us on the resource piece, obviously human resource is an issue, but really I think continued focus on ensuring that we have the best technology available, the best equipment, the best resources as an agency, as a government, to combat these threats, to combat all types of threats, whether it's terrorism or cartels, ensure we're using and utilizing the most effective technology out there to be more efficient at fighting crime.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.